They pushed me so hard I fell on my knees. The sound of my kids crying cut through the rain like broken glass. Please, I shouted, trying to pull myself up. Just give me a little more time. But the men didn't listen. Their boots splashed through the muddy ground as they kicked the door open wider, throwing my few belongings out into the dark street. The rain fell harder, soaking the blankets, the small clothes, the broken toy car my son loved so much. One of them grabbed my shirt and pulled me close. "Your time's up," he said, his breath hot with alcohol. "If you can't pay, you leave." He shoved me again, and I hit the wall behind me. My little boy screamed, "Papa!" The younger one clung to my arm, shaking. I tried to stay calm, to protect them, but my hands were trembling. The world around me blurred with water and fear. All I could think was, I've failed them again. The landlord's men kept yelling. My neighbors were watching from their windows, but no one came out. No one ever did. The taller man turned to my children and laughed. "Cute kids. Shame they'll sleep in the rain tonight." Something in me snapped. "Don't you dare touch them," I said. I stepped in front of my sons, but he pushed me away again. My shoulder hit the wall. Pain shot through me. The younger man kicked one of the bags into the gutter. "Next time pay your debt on time, pretty boy." They started to walk away. I thought it was over, until one of them came back and said, "Wait, he still owes for last month. Maybe we should teach him not to make promises he can't keep." He raised his hand. I closed my eyes, ready for the hit. That's when I heard a voice, low, cold, controlled. "Stop." The men froze. I opened my eyes. A tall man was standing at the edge of the street, half hidden under an umbrella. The rain didn't touch him. His suit was black, his eyes darker. He looked like someone who didn't belong in our broken neighborhood. "Who the hell are you?" one of the men asked. The stranger didn't answer. He just stepped forward, slow and calm, until the streetlight caught his face. Even in the rain, his presence was heavy, like the kind of man you don't want to cross. He glanced at me, then at the children. "What's going on here?" he asked, voice flat. "None of your business," the taller man said. "He owes money. We're just doing our job." The stranger looked at the bag in the gutter, at my bruised arm, at my kids holding each other. He reached into his coat, pulled out his wallet, and threw a few folded bills at their feet. "That should cover it," he said. The men looked at the money, then at him. "You can't just take it," he cut in. "Or I call the police and tell them how you broke into a house and hit a parent in front of his children." They hesitated, then picked up the bills. The taller one spat near my feet before leaving. "Next time you're not lucky," he muttered. When they were gone, silence filled the street, except for the rain. I stood there, shaking, holding my kids close. The stranger turned to leave, but I found my voice. "Wait, why did you help us?" He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me again, eyes unreadable. "Because no one else did," he said, and started walking away. "Sir, please wait," I said. I don't even know your name." He paused, back still turned. "You don't need to." Then he disappeared into the rain. That night, we had nowhere to go. I tried to find shelter under the old bus stop. My sons huddled beside me, wrapped in a wet blanket. The cold bit into our bones. "Papa, are we going home tomorrow?" my eldest asked, voice trembling. I didn't know what to say. I forced a smile. "Yes, baby. We'll find a new home." But inside, I was breaking. I couldn't stop thinking about that man. The way he looked at us, the calm power in his voice. He had no reason to help. And yet he did. I didn't even get to thank him. The next morning, I tried to find work. I went from shop to shop, asking for cleaning, cooking, anything. No one wanted a single parent with 2 small kids. By noon, I was exhausted. We sat behind a small bakery, sharing a half loaf of bread. I didn't notice the black car parked across the street until it moved closer. The same man stepped out. The stranger. He was holding an umbrella again. His shirt was crisp, his shoes shining. He looked at me quietly, then at my sons. "You're still out here," he said. I nodded, embarrassed. "Yes. We have nowhere else to go." He sighed, looked around, then said, "Get in." "What?" "Get in the car," he repeated. I froze. My heart raced. "Why?" "You can't stay on the street," he said. "There's space at my house for now. Until you figure things out." I hesitated. I didn't know him. But my children were cold, hungry, and tired. "Papa, I'm scared," my younger one whispered. I looked at them, then at him. His eyes weren't cruel, they were tired. Maybe lonely. I took a breath. "Okay." He opened the car door for the kids first. They climbed in slowly, clutching each other. I followed. The warmth of the car felt unreal. I could smell leather and something faintly metallic, like medicine. He didn't speak while driving. The city lights passed by in silence. When we reached his house, I couldn't believe it. Large gates, marble floors, glass walls. My children looked around, amazed. "Papa, it's so big," one whispered. The man looked down at them and said softly, "Don't run around. The floor's slippery." That was the first time I saw a trace of warmth in his voice. He led us to a guest room. "You can stay here. There's food in the kitchen. Clothes in the closet. Rest." I opened my mouth to thank him, but he was already walking away. Before he left, he stopped by the door and said quietly, "I don't do charity. I just don't like seeing good people destroyed by bad ones." Then he was gone. That night, after putting my sons to bed, I walked around the house quietly. I noticed bottles of pills on the table. Medical reports stacked in a neat pile. Words like renal failure, transplant, and chronic condition. Suddenly, it made sense, the tired look in his eyes, the pale color of his skin. I touched the papers gently, then stepped back, feeling like I had seen something I shouldn't. The next morning, he was in the kitchen pouring coffee. He looked at me and said, "You read my files?" I froze. I didn't mean to. I was just. "It's fine," he said, cutting me off. "Just don't pity me." I swallowed. "I don't. But are you okay?" He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "What's your name?" "Liam," I said quietly. He nodded. "Ethan." We stood there, silence thick between us. Then he looked at my children, who were peeking from behind the wall, giggling softly. "They're cute," he said. "They take after their mother." I replied automatically, then caught myself. His eyes met mine, curious. "You're their mother?" My heart jumped. I nodded slowly. "Yes." He didn't look surprised. He just said, "You've done well to raise them alone." Something in his tone made my chest tighten. No one had ever said that to me. Days passed. He didn't talk much, but he always made sure we had food. Sometimes he watched the kids play from the balcony, quiet, thoughtful. One evening, I found him sitting there, breathing hard, one hand pressed to his side. "Ethan," I said, running to him. "I'm fine," he whispered. But he wasn't. His skin was pale, sweat on his forehead. I helped him to the couch, made him take his pills, and waited until he calmed down. He looked at me weakly and said, "You shouldn't have to see this." I shook my head. "You helped me when I was at my lowest. Let me do the same." He stared at me for a long moment, then said, "You don't even know me." "I know enough," I said softly. He smiled for the first time then, small, tired, but real. And in that moment, something in my heart shifted. I didn't know what it was yet, but it felt dangerous. That night, after everyone slept, I looked out the window at the rain falling again. The same rain that had broken my life a few nights ago. But now, somehow, I didn't feel alone anymore. I didn't know what this connection between us meant. I didn't know why fate had brought him into our storm. All I knew was this. That night, when the world turned its back on me, he walked straight into the rain and changed everything. The morning after the rain felt strangely quiet. For the first time in months, my children woke up warm. The house was still, filled with that soft hum only rich homes have, machines breathing quietly, the smell of coffee drifting through the hallways. I watched my boys eating breakfast, laughing over toast and jam, and for a moment, I let myself breathe. They looked happy. Safe. Ethan wasn't at the table that morning. I thought maybe he had gone out early for work, but one of the house staff, a woman named Clara, told me he had been in his study since dawn. "He doesn't sleep much," she said quietly. "Don't worry. That's just how he is." But I did worry. I carried a tray to his study and knocked. No answer. The second knock brought a faint, tired voice. "Come in." He was sitting behind his desk, a stack of papers in front of him, the light from the window washing over his pale face. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept at all. "You should eat something," I said, placing the tray down. He didn't look up. "I'm not hungry." I hesitated. "You'll make yourself sick if you keep skipping meals." A small, humorless smile touched his lips. "I'm already sick, remember?" That made my chest tighten. I didn't know what to say, so I stood there quietly. The ticking of the clock filled the silence. Then he looked up at me, really looked at me, and said, "Why are you still here?" I blinked. "What? You could have taken the money I gave them that night, found another place. You didn't have to stay." His tone wasn't cruel, but distant, like he was trying to keep a wall between us. "I stayed because you told me to," I said softly. And because my children finally have a bed to sleep in. He sighed, leaning back in his chair. This house isn't meant for people like me or you. It's too quiet, too empty. The words hung heavy between us. After a long pause, he whispered, I wasn't supposed to live past 25. My heart froze. He didn't look sad when he said it, just matter of fact, like he'd accepted it long ago. I was born with a weak kidney, he continued. It started failing a few years ago. The doctor said I'd need a transplant soon, but the odds aren't good. I've stopped hoping. I swallowed hard. You shouldn't give up. He looked at me, eyes sharp but tired. You talk like you've never given up before. That hurt because it was true. There had been nights I wanted to disappear, too. Nights when I'd prayed my children wouldn't see me cry. I gave up many times, I said quietly. But I glanced toward the door, where my boys' laughter echoed faintly. They pulled me back. Ethan followed my gaze. For a moment, his expression softened. You love them a lot, he said. They're my life. He nodded slowly. Then maybe that's the difference between us. You still have something to live for. Over the next few days, things changed slowly. He didn't speak much, but he didn't push us away either. Sometimes I caught him watching the boys from afar, a faint smile on his lips. They adored him without fear. Kids always see through walls adults build. One afternoon, while it was raining again, my eldest, Noah, ran into his office holding a drawing. Uncle Ethan. Look, I drew you. Ethan looked up from his laptop, blinking. You did. The paper was wet at the edges, the stick figures shaky but bright. He pointed. That's you, that's Papa, that's me and Leo. Ethan stared at the paper longer than I expected. Then he said softly, I haven't been in a drawing since I was a kid. Noah smiled proudly. Now you are. He took the drawing and placed it on his desk. Thank you, Noah. From that day, Ethan started joining us for dinner. He didn't talk much, but he listened. He watched the children like he was learning something new about the world, something he'd forgotten existed. One evening, after putting the boys to bed, I walked past the balcony and found him sitting there again. The city lights glowed faintly below, rain misting the glass. He looked pale, too pale. I rushed forward. Ethan, are you okay? He closed his eyes. It's just pain. It comes and goes. Did you take your medicine? He nodded slowly. It doesn't help anymore. I didn't think twice. I kneeled beside him, holding his hand. It was cold. You need to go to the hospital. He shook his head. I'm not going back there. I hate those walls. The smell, the silence. I'd rather die at home. Don't say that, I said, voice breaking. He turned his face toward me. Why not? It's the truth. Because I stopped, realizing my throat was tight. Because you don't deserve to die alone. He looked at me quietly, something unreadable in his eyes. Then he said softly, neither do you. The words made me shiver. We sat there for a long time, listening to the rain. I didn't realize I was crying until he reached out and wiped a tear from my cheek. His hand trembled, but his touch was gentle. Liam, he whispered, you cry too easily. I'm allowed to, I said, forcing a smile. Someone has to cry for both of us. He chuckled faintly, but the sound ended in a cough. I panicked, holding him upright until he caught his breath again. His body was failing him, and we both knew it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by his door, just in case he needed me. Every sound from inside made my heart race. At dawn, I found him sitting on the floor beside his bed, a glass of water spilled beside him. He'd tried to get up and fallen. Ethan! I ran to him. He looked dazed, weak. Sorry, he whispered. Didn't want to wake anyone. I helped him up, tears burning my eyes. Stop apologizing for being human. He stared at me then, and something in him cracked. Why do you care so much? You barely know me. I didn't have an answer that made sense. Maybe because he'd been the first to stand up for me when no one else did. Maybe because I saw something in his eyes that mirrored my own pain. I just do, I said quietly. He looked away, his jaw tightening, but I saw his eyes glisten before he turned. Days turned into weeks. He grew weaker, but he still tried to act normal. Helping the kids with homework, sitting at the table, pretending nothing was wrong. One afternoon, he fainted in the kitchen. I caught him before he hit the floor. At the hospital, the doctor's words felt like thunder. His kidney is shutting down completely. He needs a transplant soon, or he won't survive another month. Ethan was half conscious, breathing through an oxygen mask. I sat by his bed, holding his hand, refusing to let go. When he woke later, his first words were, I told you not to bring me here. Tears rolled down my face. You would have died, Ethan. He smiled faintly. Maybe that would have been easier. Don't say that. Why not? You've got your kids. You'll be fine. I shook my head, choking on my tears. You think I could ever forget you? You think they could? He looked away. You shouldn't get attached to someone who's leaving. I didn't plan to, I whispered. It just happened. He turned his head slowly, meeting my eyes. There was something raw in his gaze, fear, pain, and something else he couldn't say aloud. For the first time, he reached for my hand. Then don't waste it. If I go, promise me you'll keep living. I won't promise that, I said. Because you're not going anywhere. He closed his eyes, a faint smile forming. You're stubborn. Someone has to be, I whispered. That night, as he slept, I sat by the window, staring at the rain again. The same rain that had brought him into my life now fell softly against the glass. And for the first time, I prayed, not for myself, but for him. I didn't have money or power or family to call. But I had 2 small boys who believed miracles could happen. The next morning, Noah and Leo came into the hospital room with something in their hands. A small plastic jar full of coins. Uncle Ethan, Noah said, voice serious. We're giving you our savings. Ethan opened his eyes weakly. Your savings? For your medicine, Leo added shyly. You have to get better so you can play with us again. Ethan stared at them, silent. Then his eyes filled with tears. The boys didn't understand, but I did. I had never seen him cry before. He reached out and touched their heads gently. Thank you, he whispered. You're better men than I'll ever be. I had to turn away so they wouldn't see me cry too. The days that followed were a blur of hospital visits and silent prayers. One evening, when I thought he was asleep, I overheard the doctor talking to a nurse outside the door. No donor yet. Without one, it's only a matter of time. I stood frozen, heart pounding. Then an idea came, terrifying but clear. If no one else could save him, maybe I could. The next morning, I asked the doctor to test me. Hours later, she came back with wide eyes. You're a match. I felt dizzy. Then do it. Take what he needs. She hesitated. It's risky. You're a single parent. I don't care, I said. He saved me when no one else did. Now it's my turn. When Ethan found out, he was furious. You're out of your mind, he said, voice weak but sharp. I won't let you risk your life for me. I stood my ground. You didn't ask for my permission when you saved mine. This is different. No, it's not, I said, tears streaming down my face. That night in the rain, you walked into my storm without thinking twice. Now it's my turn. He turned away, fists clenched. Why? Why would you do this? Because I can't lose you. The room went silent. He looked at me, eyes trembling, as if he didn't believe what he'd heard. You care that much? He whispered. I nodded, choking back tears. More than you'll ever know. He didn't answer. He just reached for my hand again, holding it tightly. His skin was cold, but his grip was strong. The surgery was set for the next week. I didn't tell my children everything, only that Papa was going to help Uncle Ethan get better. The night before, I stood outside his room. He was awake, staring out the window. Can't sleep? I asked softly. He shook his head. I'm scared. I walked to him and sat beside the bed. So am I. He turned his face toward me. If something happens tomorrow. Don't, I said, putting my finger to his lips. Nothing's going to happen. He caught my hand, holding it there. His eyes were full of something I couldn't name. Liam, he whispered, if I survive this, I don't want you to leave. I smiled weakly. Then live. That's all I'm asking. He closed his eyes, tears slipping down his face. You're the first person who's ever said that to me. I brushed his hair back gently. Then you'd better remember it. When morning came, they wheeled us into the surgery room together. He reached out his hand toward me before they put the mask on him. Thank you, he whispered. I squeezed his hand back. Don't thank me yet. Just come back to me. The lights blurred. My last thought before the world faded was of rain, soft, endless rain, and his hand in mine. When I opened my eyes, everything was white. The ceiling above me glowed softly, and for a long moment I couldn't remember where I was. Then the smell of disinfectant, the steady beep of machines, the ache in my side. It all came back. The surgery. Ethan. I tried to sit up, but pain cut through me. A nurse hurried over. Easy, she said gently. You're okay. The operation went well. My heart jumped. And Ethan? He's stable, she smiled. Still asleep, but he made it. Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. I let out a shaky laugh that turned into a sob. For the first time in so long, the sound of the rain outside didn't make me afraid. It sounded like music. They moved me to a recovery room later that day. My boys came running in, faces bright with joy. "Papa!" Noah shouted, climbing onto the bed carefully. "Uncle Ethan's gonna be okay." Leo held up a little card they'd made. It said, "Thank you for saving him." The words were uneven, drawn in colored pencil, but to me it was the most beautiful thing in the world. Clara stood behind them, smiling softly. "They haven't stopped talking about you and Mr. Ethan all week." I kissed my boys' foreheads and whispered, "We're going home soon." But deep inside, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. 2 days later, they finally let me see him. Ethan was lying in a dimly lit room, pale but breathing evenly. A tube ran into his arm, and the monitor beside him blinked softly. I stood by his bed, tears burning my eyes. He looked so peaceful it scared me. I reached out and touched his hand. Warm. Alive. "Hey," I whispered. "You promised to come back. Looks like you kept your word." He didn't wake, but his fingers moved slightly, as if he'd heard me. He woke that night. I had fallen asleep in the chair beside him when I felt someone brushing my hair. His voice was hoarse. "You really did it." I opened my eyes. "You scared me." He smiled weakly. "You should have let me go." "Don't start," I said, tears spilling again. "You think I went through all this so you could keep saying things like that?" He looked at me for a long time. Then, very quietly, he said, "Why me?" I frowned. "What? There are millions of people in this city. Why would you give up part of yourself for someone like me?" I didn't have an easy answer. So I told the truth. "Because you saw me when no one else did." He blinked, eyes glistening. "I didn't save you that night expecting this." "I know," I said. "That's why it meant something." He reached for my hand. His grip was weak but sure. Then maybe we both needed saving. Weeks passed. Recovery was slow, painful, but full of small miracles. Ethan's color returned. He could walk again. He laughed more. The boys followed him everywhere like little shadows. One afternoon, I found him in the garden, teaching Leo how to fold paper boats. The sun shone through the glass roof, and for once there was no rain. When he saw me, he smiled. "Hey, hero." I rolled my eyes. "Don't call me that. You gave me your kidney," he said. "That's pretty heroic." "Then stop making me regret it." I teased, but my voice trembled. He laughed quietly, the sound warm and alive. It filled the air like sunlight after a storm. One evening, when the children were asleep, we sat on the balcony together. The city lights shimmered below, soft and distant. He leaned back in his chair, eyes half closed. "I used to think this world didn't have room for me," he said. "That people like me were meant to disappear quietly." "You're still here," I said. He turned his face toward me. "Because of you." Silence stretched between us, gentle and full. Then he whispered, "I don't know how to thank you." "Live," I said. "That's enough." He shook his head. "Not for me. I owe you everything." "You owe me nothing," I said firmly. "Just don't vanish again." He smiled faintly. "You make it sound like you'd miss me." "I would," I said simply. That stopped him. For a long time he just stared at me, eyes searching mine. Then he reached out and took my hand. His thumb brushed over the scar on my wrist, tracing it like a secret. "I don't think I've ever felt this alive," he whispered. Neither of us looked away. A few days later, the doctors said he could go home. I was already there with the kids, making soup, when he arrived. He looked stronger, healthier, different. The boys ran to him, shouting his name. He knelt and hugged them tightly. I watched from the kitchen doorway, smiling through tears. That simple sight, the man who had once been a stranger, now laughing with my children, felt like a dream I never thought I'd have. Later that night, when everyone was asleep, he found me washing dishes. "Liam," he said softly. I turned. He hesitated, then said, "Stay here. With me. Don't look for another place. I want this house to feel alive again." My heart stumbled. "Ethan." He stepped closer. "I'm not saying this out of pity. He stopped, searching for the right words. "I don't want to wake up one morning and find the house empty." I looked into his eyes, saw the same fear I'd carried for years, the fear of being left behind. I nodded. "We'll stay." He let out a breath, almost a laugh, and pulled me into a quiet embrace. His heartbeat thudded softly against my ear. The days after that were almost ordinary, something I'd forgotten could exist. We ate together, argued over silly things, chased the boys through the garden. Ethan worked from home now, the doctors still keeping an eye on him. Sometimes he'd fall silent, staring out the window at the sky. When I asked what he was thinking, he'd say, "How strange it is to be alive." And I'd smile and remind him, "That's what we fought for." One night, after everyone had gone to bed, the sound of rain returned. Soft, gentle, like a memory instead of a threat. I went out onto the balcony. Ethan was already there, standing in the rain without an umbrella. I joined him. He glanced at me, smiling. "You know, the first time I saw you, it was raining like this." "I remember," I said. "You told them to stop." He nodded slowly. I didn't know then that I was stopping more than just them. I looked up at the sky. "You stopped the storm for me." He took my hand again, fingers lacing with mine. "And you gave me back the sun." For a moment we just stood there, soaked, laughing softly through our tears. The world around us blurred into silver light and warmth. Later that night, as I tucked the boys into bed, Noah asked, "Papa, is Uncle Ethan going to be with us forever now?" I paused, smiling down at him. "I hope so." He grinned. "Then it's like we're a real family." My throat tightened. "Yeah, baby. We are." I turned off the light and stepped into the hallway. Ethan was waiting there, leaning against the doorframe, eyes soft. "You heard that?" I asked. He nodded. "A real family, huh?" I shrugged, smiling. "Guess we are." He took a step closer. "Then I'm never letting go." Months passed. The seasons changed. The rain came and went, but it no longer frightened me. Every drop reminded me of where we'd started. The night everything broke and everything began. Ethan's health improved, but the doctors warned us it would always be fragile. He followed every rule, every diet, every schedule. Sometimes, when he looked tired, fear would creep back into my chest, but then he'd catch my hand and whisper, "I'm still here." And that was enough. A year later, on a quiet evening, we went back to the old neighborhood. The building where my boys and I had lived was still there, broken and cracked. I stood across the street, holding Ethan's hand, the children running ahead. "Feels like another lifetime," I said. He squeezed my fingers. It was. We watched the boys chasing each other, laughter echoing through the empty street. Ethan turned to me. "If I hadn't been walking by that night." "Don't," I said softly. "You were meant to." He smiled. Maybe the rain was fate's way of washing us into each other's lives. I looked at him, heart full. "Then let it rain forever." That night, after putting the kids to bed, I sat by the window again. The city lights shimmered. Ethan came up behind me, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything," I said. "How we almost lost it all." He rested his chin on my shoulder. "And how we didn't." I turned to face him. The lines of pain that once shadowed his face were softer now. He looked alive, truly alive. "Thank you," he whispered, "for not giving up on me." I smiled through tears. "You gave me something to believe in again." He kissed my forehead gently. "Then maybe we saved each other." The rain started again, soft against the windows. I listened to it, the sound no longer cruel but kind. It reminded me of that first night, the shouting, the fear, the children's cries, and how a stranger stepped out of the darkness and changed everything. Now that stranger sat beside me, warm and breathing, his hand in mine. We didn't need words. We just sat there, letting the rain fall, together. Because for us, the rain wasn't an ending anymore. It was where everything began.